Coach, great stuff so far. We could probably just keep going and going on all this stuff, but we're going to transition now to a segment on the show that we call Start, Sub, or Sit. For those potentially listening for the first time, we're going to give you three options around a topic, ask you to start one of them, sub one of them, sit one of them, and then we'll dig into your answer from there. So, Coach, if you're all set, we'll ask you this first one.
Got it.
Okay. This first one has to do with uh, coaching areas of growth. So these are just three different sort of general topics that at the end of every season, you find yourself year after year kind of going back to see where you can improve on going into the next season. And so your start here would be the one that you think most about, not necessarily like you're not good in, but just one that you're always thinking you're trying to get better at. So coaching areas of growth. Here's the three skills. Option one is your teaching skills, how you teach whatever it is that you teach on both sides of the ball. Option two is your connecting skills, how you connect with players, staff, how you connect everything within your program. Option three is organizational skills. As a head coach, how you organize the flow of everything that has to be organized in your program. So start, sub, sit, teaching, connecting, organizing.
Yeah, start connecting easily. I think that's where athletics in general, but definitely college basketball is so much more about individual attention to players, skill development, personal development, personal growth, lifelong learners, whatever you want to say. I just think that kids these days are craving that kind of attention. They all come in, having had trainers, and it's just so much more, what they are looking for. I think it's always been true that, you as coaches that we're going to get very little out of our guys if they can't trust us. They don't know that we love them. They don't know that we're here to help them achieve everything that they want to achieve. But it's never been more important than it is today, that you connect with them on and off the floor in every way that you can, and so I don't think that we're poor at that, but I think that every year it's important for us to continue to research that and see how we can get better. I would say that the teaching part, we're always trying to tweak things. Naturally, you're trying to catch any advantage that you can on either end of the floor. These days, with so much roster turnover, it used to be very different for Belmont, in a sense that, here's a fun fact for you. Before the transfer portal, we lost two players to transfer in 17 seasons. Wow. We had two guys leave our program in 17 seasons. Now if we have two a season, it's rare. And so you're always teaching and trying to come back to the basics and almost starting over, from season to season. I don't think we have the organization part licked necessarily, but that's the part that I would sit if I need to.
Okay. Coach, great answers. I'll start with your start and the connecting piece. And I guess maybe relating back to our first part of this conversation with your style and your offense, how have you found that the way you coach and teach offense helps you connect to players? Because I would imagine the way you teach offense and recruit and the types of shots and all that is a way to connect with players differently than, say, other ways or other styles. And I guess how you think about that.
Yeah, let me answer it this way first. And I don't want to imply at all that like our people are better than anybody else's people, or, we've got better personalities on our team than anyone else. But at Belmont, we've eliminated just a lot of risk and a lot of problem and a lot of things that go on outside of the confines of the team that a lot of schools have to worry about. I mean, our team GPA was a 3.5 last year.
Yeah.
We got more academic All-Americans than any school in the country since we've been Division I. And the assists kind of bear itself out in that as well. Like, we've got a group where we're very like-minded, even if we have new pieces. The culture within our program, I played here in the early 90s, and the culture in our program today is so similar to 30 years ago. The players are better, and the league is better, and the game has evolved. But there's almost no difference in the type of people we have in our program now compared to what it was like then. And Belmont University as a whole is very similar to that. So that gives us a great opportunity to just focus on, keeping the main thing the main thing. Yeah. And if connectivity is really important to us, it's easy for us, for our starting place of connection to be advantageous for us. There's a high level of trust, like-mindedness, things like that, that really allow us to just focus on being a great basketball teammate and a great basketball team.
For sure. Coach, it's hard to do, year after year. Are there things that you really, really look for in the recruiting process from a personality standpoint that, are there yellow flags that you'll accept because once they get into your culture, they'll be okay? Like, is a little ego okay? I guess what are the things that maybe you're really looking for to get to that cultural piece?
Yeah, that's a great question. I think it is very important for us, that we do not limit ourselves, to recruit student athletes that have to fit inside our nice little tidy box. We can take some guys, we can take a guy on the fringe at a skill level. Maybe he's not a great shooter, or offense isn't his thing, but he's got to be a really tough kid, a really competitive kid, a great teammate, a great leader, a really good student. Like he can find his way on our team if he's not a great 3-point shooter or an assist guy, right? And you could really use any maybe a guy is not athletic enough to play at this level, but he's a highly skilled guy and he's a great leader and he's got a great IQ. JJ Mann was a great player for us, and all conference guys, been playing overseas forever. He's one of those guys. He would not pass the look test for anybody at any time in his career. And he's been an unbelievable college and professional player because he still was able to get things done at Belmont because for all those reasons. So they don't have to fit inside that box nice and neat. We think that the positive peer pressure on our team, maybe it's an average student. Maybe a guy's fighting like crazy to be a 2.5 or a 2.8 or something like that. Well, if he comes into Belmont and he's a knucklehead and he's not real interested in academics, he's not going to survive here. He will learn pretty quickly that he's the black sheep and that it's not going to work well for him unless he decides it needs to be important. So we think we have those things going for us.
For sure.
Coach, and continuing to grow your communication skills, how you form connections, how you build trust. When looking at the current athlete today, has there been one thing that has stood out in terms of the change that is required on your end to build these connections, or as there maybe or just like a shift in what maybe you need to is more valued than it was, say, 5-10 years ago?
Yeah, well, I think that we always have to evolve and adapt and recognize strengths and weaknesses and be willing to make change, right? I mean, that's just living and aging and experiences and so forth. So if I'm doing things now the way that I was 13 years ago when I first became a head coach, then I probably don't have a very long shelf life in this business, But on the other hand, I think when you get into trying to be something you're not, or try to start manipulating situations to make somebody happy or to reach them in a different way, you really open up the door for problems, in my opinion. I've always been very direct with our players. I don't like false manipulation at all. I just want to be as honest as I can. I want to be demanding, but I want to do that with the right spirit, and try to help each player, become his best self so that our team can become its best self. My job is to make sure that Belmont's proud of what we're doing out on the floor. And that's how I make all of our decisions. And then it's the same with the athletic department. Then it's the same with our team.
Mm-hmm. Coach, can I just follow up on demanding with the right spirit and just ask you to, I think I understand, but just a little bit to elaborate on, I guess, what the right spirit is and like towing that line between being demanding and not a drill sergeant.
Yeah. I mean, I have to be flexible, and I think that I think the way that we play answers that question a little bit. I'm
Mhm.
not out there moving all the chess pieces myself, and I'm not a drill sergeant in a sense that it's my way or the highway. There are a lot of ways to get things done, but I am demanding in a sense that I expect everybody to be a great teammate before they're anything else. And I expect everybody to represent Belmont the way that I believe Belmont needs to be represented. And even if that looks a little different, or if it's not cool some days, or we might lose some kids along the way because it's not a good fit for some people. But let's know who we are. Let's recruit to that. Let's believe in that. Let's preach that. Let's model that. And then let's see what those results end up being on the back end of things. And we've got a long track record that says the results are pretty good.
Absolutely. All right, Pat.
All right, coach. Our last start sub sit. We want to look at the defensive side of the ball, and this start sub
What?
sit. Yeah, we'll be brief here.
Yeah. We can edit this part out.
Yeah. We've turned this defensive gray areas, and we want to look at the defending DHO versus a pitch ahead. Is it a DHO? Is it a pitch ahead? And I want to give you three different two-man connect, two different types of players that could be involved in these actions, and which one has the greatest variance for you and how you will help your team try to defend it, if that makes sense. So
No, you've lost me already, but go ahead.
yeah.
We're good.
When you look at a DHO versus a pitch ahead, the greatest variance, toughest to defend, is option one, when it's a guard to guard in either of those actions. Option two is when it's a forward to a guard. Or option three is when it's a guard going to the forward for the handoff for the pitch ahead.
All right, I'm definitely gonna sit the guard to guard.
Yeah.
All right. They're definitely with ghost screens and just the multitude of ways that you see those actions. It's if the offense is good at them, these are all very, very difficult, right? Conceptually, they're easy, but if the offense can use these as a strength, they're all very difficult. But I would sit that one because I think those are the most predictable, the easiest switch. I think 10 out of 10 coaches in the world are going to switch those screens. So I would sit that one. And in a similar way, I would sub the forward to guard because those are so highly conventional and ordinary as well. That's those two combined are going to be the vast majority of what you're going to see in a game and in a season. So by process of elimination, I would say the guard to forward option is going to be the most difficult and the one that I would start. If you're talking about defending it, I mean,
Yes.
I'm not sure. I may have answered that entirely backwards,
No.
but that's the one that's going to be the hardest if that's what you're asking me.
Yeah.
Because it's more conventional. So,
Yeah.
it's easy for me to sit here and coaches in general. Well, let's just switch it.
Yeah.
And we learned a hard lesson last year. Honestly, last year we were a bad defensive team for the better part of the season, but historically we're not. We're always in the top third, top half of the league at worst. But last year we felt like we had a lot of interchangeable pieces. And we had a lot of new pieces, and we said, let's minimize the ability to make mistakes defensively by switching more screens, whether that's ball screens, pin downs, whatever. We switched a lot more. And the truth is, like, we didn't make very many mistakes because we switched all those things, but it caused us to be so passive. There was no mentality to bust through anything. There was no mentality to really stay in front of our man because we're always just looking to switch and take the easy way out. So it's just one of those great examples of conceptually it sounds great and easy, like this is obvious, but there's no, whether it's offense or defense, regardless of situation, you've got to be really good at executing that action if you want your players and your team to be good at defending it or running it offensively.
Yeah. Coach, my follow-up is, I think where this question came from is I think when me and Dan were preparing, we're with you, I think the guard to guard is, it doesn't necessarily, it's not foolproof. The easiest probably is to switch it. But when looking at these different sizes, whether it's guard going to a forward going to a guard, How do you think about the I guess the clarity in how you teach these coverages? Like, again, is it a DHO as a pitch? To you, is it four coverages, based on each one? Or like you said, how you try to think about, okay, if it's guard forward, irrespective of DHO or pitch, trying to apply one coverage, and the same if it's forward to guard, trying to just apply one coverage to those two different actions.
Yeah. Okay. The first thing for us, regardless of who it is we're going to identify who switches with who,
Hmm.
not necessarily who we're playing. It's almost all for us. It's always, if we got 15 guys on our roster, 1 through 12, you're switching with each other.
Hmm.
1 through 13, or 13 through 15, you're switching with each other, or 1 through 15, whatever the numbers end up being. That's where we're going to start the conversation. All
Hmm.
right. But these scenarios, I mean, is it a good screen? Did he exit out early? Did they twist the screen? Did he even hit him? Was it a ghost screen? So it doesn't matter who you are. There's a high level of communication that has to happen early. And then there's got to be a high level of stance, effort, toughness, competitiveness that helps you execute that situation. And so, to me, that's a lot more important than all the ways that we can guard this thing.
Hmm.
And for us, we never extend our defense. We're not trying to cause turnovers. We're trying to minimize mistakes defensively.
Hmm.
And so we're going to play the 3-point line as best we can. The longer I've gone, especially in this league, the more we take the UC Irvine approach of let's let bad shooters take bad shots for them. They can go in. On paper it might look like, I mean, in video it might look like a good shot because he's wide open. But he makes 31% of those. And so let's just play a little bit more analytics with that and personnel and with how we guard actions than necessarily what you're asking, which is
Yeah.
conceptually, you know, if it's a forward to guard, we're going to go under. If it's a guard to guard, we're going to switch it. Those kinds of things.
Yeah. Coach, when you talked about, last year when it started to become more obvious to you and your staff that you weren't going to be a fantastic defensive team. Like mid-season, that's hard to fix, really. You kind of are who you are with your roster and who's playing. But like, I would imagine you went through iterations of, well, do we just drill down on one-on-one defense more? Do we emphasize this? Or like a schematic thing? Do we throw a zone? Like, could you take us through, I guess, when you figure out you don't have a great defensive team in the middle of the season, what are you thinking about doing with that?
Well, this is exactly what happened last year. We were in the bottom third of our league the entire year. We were in the 200s overall the entire year, and we were trying everything. All right, we get down later in the season, 6, 7, 8 games to go, and essentially, this sounds. I mean, this is amazing that this is what we did, but we basically just said, you know what? Just start fouling the crap out of people. Like, let's just be more physical.
Yeah.
And let's box out harder. Let's bump guys on cuts more. Let's body people up on drives more. Let's get helpers there to block shots faster. It was just entirely an aggressiveness scenario, where to do those things well, this is the subconscious part of it. You've got to play in a better stance if you're going to do those things better. You've got to just have a different mentality if you're going to do those things. And I think it was the last 5 games of our year, which 2 of those were in our conference tournament. I think we're a top 10 team in the country defensively in those last 5 games, after doing that the other way the whole season. And it's not that simple, clearly. And I don't know if we can survive that way for, 32 games. But I can promise you that the guys we have returning this season were far better this summer because of the last 5 games last year than they were at any point in time until those last 5 games last year.
Sure. That's great.
And it has nothing to do with anything but the mentality of how you play the game.
Yeah.
And it's not even us. I mean, we emphasize defense. We practice it We're not one of those teams. We're not a Princeton offense where we're going to go offense 90% of the time, and then, oh yeah, we got to play defense too. Like, we talk about it a lot, we watch it a lot, we drill it a lot. But sometimes it's pretty simple on that end of the floor. How much do you care, and how hard do you play?
Mm-hmm. And Coach, maybe you just answered the question, but you said, yeah, when you switched, you had a lot of passivity. So going into this season and knowing, I'm sure you will switch, how you think about eliminating the passivity of a switch defense?
Yeah, I mean, I think it's, for example, are you gonna, can you still top lock a great wing coming off a zoom action, or, are you gonna defer to the switch, or are you gonna bust through top side? If you're a great player and I'm guarding you and you're coming off a DHO, I want to get through that if I can.
Mm-hmm.
That's an aggressive mentality. I'm the best defender. You're the best offensive player. I want to guard you. And so I'm going to bust through that, and I'm going to get back in front, and I'm going to be squared up, and we're not going to have to switch anything. But when I get nailed on a screen and my teammate's there and he's ready and he's communicated, we can switch that so that I don't have to fight through a screen guarding a great player.
Yeah.
That's how, I mean, it's a fine line. And there's, as we've already discussed, there's just gray areas all over the defensive end of the floor.
Yeah.
With what you're going to do. But there's a big difference in that, in us saying, hey, we're switching, so I let you go off the screen. And then the next guy accepts you coming off the screen. But doesn't have that mentality either. It's a fine line for sure.
No.